supplements. I think that's
Yeah.
the most important thing, you know. And yes, I had slowed down with the detox procedures because I don't want to be feeling like crap while going, you know, through this and the kids and everything, trying to keep myself on float and peace, you know.
It's a lot to
Yeah.
handle all at once, I'll tell you.
Yes.
Especially, I don't know if you've had the healing reactions or the retraces of like old bronchitis or something, where you get like lung things, I guess I don't really know what to call them, where these symptoms
Yeah.
seem to come back up. And it's not that you're really sick, but you develop kind of a cough or a runny nose for a very short period of time. And
Right.
then, people in the external reality right now freak out, over that
I
whole
know. I
situation.
know.
And like another one is like when you're going through inflammation, or if your body's cleansing and you do uncover like a little nest of bacteria during this healing
Right.
reaction, then you're
Right.
likely to get inflammation and even develop a fever. And it's only temporary. But if you work in the medical industry, for example, you won't really have the ability to go to work because they don't understand, if you have a fever for other reasons aside from being
Right.
sick, or
Right.
maybe your thyroid's just a little overactive that day and you haven't really, you're not sick. It's just something that's come about due to your healing progress or your journey. Uh,
Right. Yeah, I did have a retracing back at the beginning of February, no, the middle of February,
yeah.
but this thing wasn't blown out like this, and it lasted me like 5 days,
Oh, wow.
with a lot of runny nose, body ache, headache. I had a headache like for 3 days, and it was kind of tough, but I didn't thought too much about, you know, this what's happening now because it wasn't here in the U.S. yet, kind of thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, we do come and go with the retracing and all those symptoms. But now with everything that is happening, it's like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. Like this morning I started sneezing after I washed my head, and I'm like, coronavirus, you know?
Oh, I think that's the worst part, really, that people's response to
Yeah,
this now. And I think that's worse than actually being sick, to be honest.
I know. I know.
Um,
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, that was my what I wanted to
no
talk about.
worries. So
Yeah.
I did get the recording working. It's not like the way it typically works, but I'll be able to convert it over into an MP3 and it should be fine. But I have to record a video. So I don't know if you guys wanted to video. You don't have to. But I'm recording myself as a video anyway for this to work. Uh, but if not, it's cool. Um,
Okay.
it's totally up to you. So,
So I have a question.
yeah, what's up, Mike?
Who was just speaking? Raquel or Debbie?
Raquel.
Raquel. So she said she was doing the program and it involved coffee enemas. What program exactly was she speaking about?
Oh. Um, are you on a mineral balancing program of any kind, Mike?
I have my test results in front of me, but
Okay.
I'm also doing my own interpretation of the Gerson therapy.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Yeah, I've done
but
that for a
Okay.
bit.
I've not integrated the two together yet.
Okay. Raquel, do you want to
Okay.
take the reins on this for a minute?
Yes. Yes. Hi,
Cool.
Mike.
Hi.
Hi. Yes. Yes, I've been doing a nutritional balancing program by Dr. Wilson, and it's a combination of after we do the hair analysis, we see like the oxidation rate that our body is seeing and the mineral deficiencies. So let's say if you're on slow oxidation, then you will get on a slow oxidation diet to help your body, you know, balance and detox properly, along with a combination of uh, vitamins and minerals. And also along that, we do the detoxification procedures like coffee enemas, saunas, infrared sauna. Um,
Okay.
we also do food reflexology, spinal twist, um, and a few other things like, pray a few other exercise that
Pulling
help,
down
the
kind of
body.
meditations.
Yes, laying down, meditations.
Okay.
And so the combination of that, yes. So you had a hair analysis recently, you said?
Yes.
Okay. And are you working with somebody like help you interpret it, or you
No.
um
It was written results which made no sense. Um,
uh
but no, I am not working with anyone yet. I did on my last hair analysis 3 years ago. I worked with
mhm.
Mather. Do you, do you know who I'm referring to?
What's his name?
Mather. I don't know that
Mather.
person.
No.
Okay. But I wasn't real happy with it with what happened, so I no longer work with him.
Oh, bless you.
Okay.
It's part of the process. Everyone's a little different. Everyone has a little bit different approach. Um, so thank you for getting another hair test and not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because that's very common. I know Raquel here is a practitioner. I'm also one. Maybe we can provide a little information in this call about hair testing and maybe some information you
Sure,
may
yeah.
get. But um,
Yes, John, he also, I mean, he's a practitioner too, and very knowledgeable and super, I mean, super. So, but it's very, I think it's better when you get the hair test done to have somebody by your side that can explain certain things to you and guide you. And, because there's a lot of ups and downs while you start the program and a lot of questions too. And if you don't have somebody there to guide you through and help you through, it can be very challenging and confusing at the same time.
Yeah, I agree, but I have yet to see anyone integrate the hair analysis and detox together. So your references to Wilson doing this is new to me.
okay, so you're kind of new to the whole boat. You just kind of can you
Yes.
tell us how what brought you to get a hair test? I'm just genuinely curious.
Well, I'm not new to this. I'm just new to integrating the detox and the hair test.
Okay,
Um, I've been, I've never, I do not practice any type of alternative therapy, but I've been involved in it for 20 years.
okay,
Um,
fantastic.
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I've done the Gershon therapy, and
You've done the Gerson?
yes,
Okay, okay, yes.
Okay, so I guess I'll give you a little bit of a background just so you get an idea of especially what we do in this group, because it's a little different than a lot of different healing modalities in the sense that we use a hair test as like our primary evaluation of our progress on a hair in our on our healing journey, I guess you can say. So
okay,
there's different camps of people that use hair testing and using supplementation and other modalities to kind of correct health. So the first camp is like what Raquel had brought up, and that is uh, the Dr. Wilson therapy. Dr. Wilson followed Dr. Paul Eck, who is the pioneer or the originator of the mineral balancing program that like our group is essentially based off of. Um, sorry, I just had a phone call. So there's the one kind of area which is Dr. Wilson's approach. Dr. Wilson, he advocates a lot of vegetables in the diet. So I think it's 10 or 9 cups. I think it's 10 cups these days. He does coffee enemas. He does sauna therapy, near infrared sauna therapy. So it has to be a light based one. He does meditation, and he combines all these with the supplementation program as a form of integrative medicine or integrative health. So um, his perspective is largely based off of Dr. Paul Eck, and Dr. Paul Eck used mostly just supplements to encourage detoxification by balancing body chemistry. And there's another practitioner, another area as well, that is Dr. David Watts. And Dr. David Watts uses a different lab. He founded Trace Elements Inc., TEI, while Dr. Paul Eck founded ARL. Brickhill, can I just ask you to mute your mic, please? And so there's the
So I'm
different. Sorry.
so I'm familiar. So Watts worked for Eck and then
Yeah.
left because they had a difference of opinion.
Yeah, and it had to do with copper and the potassium loss and the sodium potassium inversion that came about of this. Um, and I believe Dr. Eck had kicked Dr. Watts out of the lab, and Dr. Watts created the other lab, which is now Trace Elements Inc. So now that rather than being just one lab that doesn't wash the hair test, there's now two labs. So there's the two different stems of approach that people use. His is a little different than Dr. Eck's original approach because he went forth with his perspective of what happened during the copper dump, whereas um, obviously Dr. Eck thought he was right. So there's two different ways of doing it now.
I would I would love to get. I have read several different interpretations of copper and its role in the system,
Yeah.
um, including Morley Robbins, Walsh.
Yeah.
There's numerous of them. Can you just throw out what your interpretation of copper is?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I'm familiar with all of those. Dr. Walsh was he kind of learned from Dr. Pfeiffer, and Dr. Pfeiffer was the first person to point out copper toxicity in his practice. Dr. Pfeiffer was a psychiatrist, so he worked with people that were primarily mentally ill. Right? They were seeing a psychiatrist, so you can pretty much
So
get.
prisoners, yeah,
Yeah, you can kind of if you're seeing a psychiatrist, generally you're beyond the point of just a little depression. Generally had things like bipolar disorder, manic depression, schizophrenia, and all things down that area, more severe than just like depression. Not to say all depression is the same, but so the Pfeiffer worked primarily with copper toxicity. As far as I know, he identified the HPU or KPU or the high cryptopyrroles found in the urine, and he used that as a gauge also for copper imbalances. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because, of course, before you talk about where we're at now, you have to talk about the history. So, because Pfeiffer worked in a psychiatry practice, he primarily only came across people that had psychiatric symptoms, right? So, according to him, copper was just toxic, like avoid it like the plague, right? Um,
okay,
Now, the traditional approach of copper is that it is an essential nutrient. You need it for collagen synthesis. It works with vitamin C. You can have copper deficiency symptoms. And because you can have deficiency symptoms, it makes it an essential nutrient, meaning you need it for health. So, Dr. Paul Eck used to use copper in his practice regularly. He built his perspective by reading stuff that's more than just Dr. Pfeiffer. Now, Dr. Pfeiffer, like I said, would avoid it. He'd say, don't drink tap water, copper pipes are the devil, all of these things. Dr. Eck seen it in a different light. He used to see copper toxicity as like when you get a hair test and your copper is very high, like it's higher than 2.5, then he would see that as, yeah, you're toxic with copper because it's out of balance. But because you are toxic in copper, that means it's built up in areas like the liver, the muscle, and the nervous system, and your body's not able to utilize it because it's like having money in a bank account, right? It's like if you have money in a bank account and you go to a farmer's market, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank account, you can't buy fresh produce because you don't have cash, kind of situation. So it's about having available copper. So when you don't have available copper, you also have deficiencies, right? So
okay.
Dr. Eck perceived the copper toxicity as being both a toxicity and a deficiency at the same time. So he would still use copper in someone that was copper toxic, and he would actually recommend others to do that as well. Uh,
So so other people have used different terms for these two types of coppers,
yeah,
like an oxidized form or not bound to celioplasm.
yeah. Ceruloplasmin, yeah. The truth is there's two different states of copper in the body. There's cupric, and um, it's copper with a 2 valence and copper with a 3 valence. I forget the exact terms that they use, but copper needs to be bound to ceruloplasmin, as Morley always talks about, so that it's bioavailable. The thing is by raising your CP levels, your ceruloplasmin levels, you don't necessarily correct copper imbalances. So it's just kind of a matter of approach. I think Morley's approach of using copper toxicity as he's more about iron, right? It's like iron toxicity due to potassium and magnesium deficiency is kind of his perspective, but he really focuses on using vitamin A and raising ceruloplasmin to correct the iron toxicity problem. And that's because copper and iron are so entangled in the blood, right? Like, so.
Well, they both require CP to work.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. They're entangled. Like if you have low iron levels in the blood, like ferritin, then most times doctors will recommend you to take iron. But you can actually, in most cases, correct an iron deficiency by giving copper. And, that's just because the doctors don't know much about balancing minerals or mineral interactions, right? They're very reductionistic. So, if they can reduce it down to iron deficiency, therefore you give iron to correct iron deficiency. It makes logical sense, but the human body doesn't work like that, sadly. So my perspective is it's very similar to Dr. X. We give copper when the sodium potassium ratio is lower than 2.5. So you will get a product called Limcumin generally. And when you have copper toxicity, like a very high copper level, we still give it regardless of the NAK ratio, because we know that it's going to be, you have a deficiency even though you're toxic as well. That's just the perspective. I'm more.
Can I go back?
Yeah.
You made a comment, or the sodium potassium ratio. You would give copper. What was that ratio again?
If it's lower than 2.5, you got a test there. So it'd be the NAK, right?
Mine's at 1.48, and I am classified as a fast 1.
So you got yours at trace elements.
Yeah.
Yeah. Off the top, I don't recall exactly, because he breaks the oxidation types, which were originally based off of 2, right? There was the fast or the slow oxidizer, and then you can be in mixed oxidation if you have excessive adrenal gland activity. So, I'm more of the EC approach, and so is Rakil here. We go generally by just the 2 oxidation rates. So if you're a fast 1, maybe you can just tell me, do you have high sodium potassium levels and low calcium to magnesium?
My calcium magnesium are both low. Let me check the ratio. Calcium, I don't see the ratio on here.
Well, just the levels themselves. So they're on the lower end compared to sodium potassium.
Sodium potassium are very high, but within range. Magnesium, calcium are at the very low end.
Okay.
Range.
Yeah. So
my calcium magnesium ratio is 9.5.
Okay. Yeah. So
9.5.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, I don't want to obviously this isn't like a interpretation consult or something. This is just a general conversation about hair testing and these results. So I'm not really I don't mean this to be diagnostic in any way or as recommendation at all, but I'll just tell you, just for the matter of discussion in the call, a little bit about this. So you would be a fast oxidizer if you have the lower calcium magnesium in relation to sodium potassium. You can gauge it also off ratios, but I don't want to like get into the very specifics just in the call. But if you're a fast 1, then you probably have a low CAP, or calcium to phosphorus ratio, on that test, which would make you think immediately that you're a fast oxidizer, like it says fast 1. Now, you told me you have a low sodium potassium ratio. So the Dr. Eck approach, when like, I guess for Kill and I are both Eckian, I guess if that was like a thing. There's like Watson and Eckian approaches, the two different wings. But from the Eck perspective, or even the Dr. Wilson perspective, would be that you're actually a slow oxidizer under stress. So we would give you Megapan, and it would treat you just like a slow oxidizer in this pattern. Even though you are indicated as fast oxidizer on that profile. Now, because like I said, sodium potassium being very low, those people generally always get copper. Now, you don't have to give copper. The goal of what the products that we use is to raise sodium potassium ratios. So the goal is to raise sodium. So there's other things to use other than copper, and that's why like the trace elements approach uses a product called ZMC, and that's manganese, vitamin C, and zinc to do that. And manganese and vitamin C raise sodium levels. At ARL or Endomet, we would use a product called Limcum, and we'd give copper to do that. So we found copper works really well to raise the sodium potassium ratio. So it's just a matter of approach to what you really want to do. Some people try Limcum and don't do well on it, and then they go down the other path. And for other people, it's the opposite. They do, the Watts approach, and they don't do that great. And then they come over to us, and they do great. So I don't want to down talk anyone or say anyone's better. It's just a matter of approach. Some people just don't do well on certain supplements. Yeah. But because you like just so you know, a fast oxidizer is someone that's generally deficient in copper, so they usually get copper. So if you were at ARL, you'd probably get put on a slow oxidizer program, and then they would give you Limcum to raise sodium potassium, and Limcum has copper in it. If you go to Trace Elements and you get their products, you'll probably get put on Simpac, and Simpac has copper in it. So, it's still there. It's just what products you're using really to balance it.
Now, John, are you familiar with the copper supplement Synergy?
Yes. I am.
Yes, sir.
Only because of the area that I work in, right? It's not like it's something I use. That's the copper niacin complex, right? I forget the exact thing. I'll tell you, just from people that I've observed that got a hair test that have been on that product, whether or not they experience symptomatic improvement, that's one thing, but we don't gauge progress on health with symptoms. We use a hair test. For something being so-called bioavailable copper, I found a lot of people with very low copper levels. So they have copper lower than 1.0 on the hair test, which indicates a hidden copper or copper that's not available. So even when taking that product, so I think they got some good advertising, but just from experience of seeing hair tests that are using that product, I don't think it's the whole story, to be honest. It may help.
Right.
Like if you need copper, it's probably fine to take, but that's what I'd use to gauge it. I wouldn't use it just to take, shotgun.
What form of copper would you recommend?
We use limcumin, and I think the copper in limcumin is just amino acid chelate, so I think it's like probably just like copper glycinate, to be honest.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I regularly take, personally right now, I'm a fast oxidizer. I take copper sulfate from Body Bio, just the liquid one. I'm a little bit different than, I don't only use Endomet products. I'm in Australia and I'm in a chiropractic clinic. I don't know if you see in the video. So there's like a picture of a spine there. So, but so we use different products than just the standard ones. But I think it doesn't really matter what exact one you're going to use as long as you don't use like copper oxide or I'm not a big fan of copper gluconate either because it's just kind of a cheap mineral. It's not very bioavailable. I'd rather have a mineral bound to a protein than a sugar. Just holds better.
Right. And another thing to keep in mind when you're trying to balance your body and the biochemistry, focusing on just one mineral or two is not the right way to go. It's a general approach on nutrition, in different minerals and vitamins for your body to be able to start increasing, the vitality so you can start healing and properly detox than, just doing isolated supplements or focusing in just one thing.
That's a good point. And in some ways, they talk about holistic nutrition as being like, oh, mind, body healing, right? Which it is. But holistic nutrition also comes the idea that you don't just use one nutrient to balance body chemistry as well, right? You use the whole spectrum of nutrients because they're all essential for health. Yeah. Mike, you did bring up at one point about detoxification with the hair test. And I think this is a good one to bring up because I don't think we've talked about it in a group call yet. So when you follow like a nutritional program and you take all the nutrients, we take them all of the nutrients that are relative to what our body chemistry needs, right? So if you're a slow oxidizer, you take more vitamin B1, more vitamin B3, and more vitamin B5 or something. But you still take vitamin B2, even though vitamin B2 raises calcium levels, and that's not what you want to do as a slow oxidizer. We still provide it because it's an essential nutrient. Like, it'd be an unbalanced program if we don't provide all of the B vitamins, and then extra ones are the ones you need to balance your body chemistry. So, and the reason why this is important is because we find a lot of people that actually go on programs over a long period of time that do develop deficiencies. So, like the Dr. Wilson Four Lows program, I've met a lot of people that develop deficiencies on that program, primarily because it's like just calcium, magnesium, and zinc. And it's very imbalanced when you talk about like B vitamins and vitamin C and, or even vitamin A. So the holistic approach of like holistic nutrition of providing all of the nutrients is really important in that aspect. So rather than just focusing on copper, like Raquel said, you want to try all of them really. But, yeah. But when we give extra nutrients, you provide your body with like what we call the preferred elements. So this was a unique concept of originally Dr. Paul Eck, especially when it came to detoxification of heavy metals. And this is the idea that when you take in, I guess it's the idea, it's a teleological perspective. So teleology is like a purpose-driven, biological function. So it's like the body has a purpose. And so with this comes like, the vital life force and all these other things in natural medicine, not necessarily, standard medicine. And so the idea is that the body has a preference in what nutrients it uses, and it will use toxic metals to maintain biological function. So by providing adequate nutrients, you can allow your body to let go of the nutrients it no longer needs. So it's like the preferred and less preferred concept.
Okay.
Have you heard of that one before?
Yes, I'm quite familiar with it.
Oh yeah? Okay, good. Sometimes it's really
Well,
new to people and other times it's, you
if
know.
I'm low on zinc, the body will take in cadmium to replace the zinc. I think
Yeah.
those two are exchangeable.
Yeah. No, that's a common one.
So on my hair test, I came back with virtually no toxic elements
Wow, you're
except
Mr.
arsenic.
Clean.
I had to. I I was doing 3 months of missionary work at a detox center when I had this test done.
Yeah.
Uh, so during those 3 months, my blood was going to be artificially clean.
Okay.
So this test might not represent me outside of the clinic.
Yeah, and there's a misconception too. That's the most important thing about when we study this is to realize that, and a lot of people doesn't do know that, is that when you see all of the heavy metals in a low range, it doesn't mean that they're low inside of your cells in your body. It's totally the opposite. It means that there's a big buildup of the metal in our system, and it's not yet manifesting, through the hair, coming out of our bodies. It's like the metals is stuck and built up in our system. When I had my first test back in 2015, mine was just like that too, and I was like, okay. But then as I've been doing the program, I mean, I've had aluminum of, I mean, really high. I've been dumping on and off mercury, arsenic, lead, nickel. I mean, all of them, they don't come out at the same time. The body has its own rhythm, and knows best when to dump the certain metal. But yeah, having them all low doesn't mean that you don't have them, or that they're low in your system. No.
They just weren't present in the bloodstream. They're still stuck in the cell. Okay.
Can I ask you, Mike, what were you doing in this? Was it 3 months of detox work? Personally, for 3 months of extensive detoxing, I'd expect to see higher metals on a hair test, personally. So can I just
Um,
ask what you were doing?
so the place is called Optimum Health, and it's based on Ann Wigmore's teaching.
Okay.
She's the wheatgrass lady in colonics. However, while there, we do wheatgrass enemas, but I incorporated coffee enemas while there.
Okay.
Um, so yes, after listening to you speak, I agree with you that there's heavy metals should have been more present, and they aren't.
Yeah.
So which means my cells are retaining those because I'm probably not supplying the cells with the proper replenishment nutrients.
Yeah. So you just did detox protocols. You didn't do a supplement approach as well. You just consume
No
wheatgrass
sup,
juice. Okay.
no supplements there.
All right. One perspective I might say, just because you were taking a lot of wheatgrass, is that wheatgrass is very high in manganese, and manganese raises sodium levels on a hair test, and then potassium tries to follow it. So if you remember earlier, I said you're likely just a slow oxidizer that underwent some stress that raised sodium potassium levels. Um, Taking the wheatgrass probably raised your sodium potassium as well. So you may feel better, not to say like it was a waste of time. It's just to say that like what would happen is that it increased adrenal gland activity, and wouldn't say that like it was like a great detox as far as the hair testing perspective goes if you're like very low. But the problem with the trace element test, and it's different than the ARL, is that it doesn't test for as much heavy metals. Like the value is different, and the value is like 1 0 over, which doesn't seem like a lot, but when you test like lead, you'll find like on an ARL that a lot of people are eliminating like 0.02 lead or something. But on the trace elements, they don't measure that low. So you can't really tell if you have any because it just says it's below calibration limit. And
Okay.
it's a real challenge. Like that's one reason why I still use ARL. Like I have an account at Trace Elements. I just don't use them unless I suspect like titanium or uranium or some other toxicity. But I do prefer to test with ARL only for that reason, is that you can at least get a good baseline for especially an initial hair test. So you can say, oh, my lead was like 0.02. But then I started going on the supplement program, started doing sauna therapy, started doing like, the whole integrative program. And then my lead went from zero point zero 0.02 to like 0.06 or something. You can see that increase. But on like trace elements, both of those would be below calibration limit because they don't test for that low, right? So you don't really see progress. It just kind of, it can be actually do the opposite where you feel like you're not getting anywhere as far as detoxing goes with those programs. So it's just a perspective, not to say, anything's a waste of time that you did with the Anne Wigmore approach, because Anne Wigmore is like, she's one of like the legends of natural health, right? Her work with wheatgrass is very you can go to like juice restaurants everywhere. The wheatgrass is there because of her and a couple of other people, right? So like, yeah.
So I think her protocol deals more with cleaning up the intestinal tract,
Yeah.
where the Gershon therapy would get more into the cellular aspects.
Yeah. I think both are important, right? Cleaning out the intestine. If you look in the Facebook group files for Mineral Balancing Friends, you'll find that there's one by V.E. Irons, I think his name is. And he was really into cleaning out the colon as well, and saying like you can't get healthy if you got like basically if you have rotting material in your intestine. Like it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter how much vitamin mineral you take, you're clogged up and you have decaying matter in there. It's a losing battle.
So I believe Irons was based out of Northern California, and his family still runs the Colima boards, right?
Yeah, they used to have a device, right, to do it.
Yeah, so the family's still up there and still produces the Colima boards.
Oh, cool. I've only read the Health View article that we have in that group, and I shared it because Dr. Eck was one of the ones that was interviewed by Health View newsletter, but he was as well, and I shared it just because I thought it was relevant because of the coffee enema and the hydrotherapy that we do on the program. But I didn't know that they were still going on with that.
The family still produces it, yeah.
Fantastic. I gotta look into that. I might get one. Just as it's just one of those cool devices that.
Actually, I built one once.
Oh really?
I was living in a little. I had a Colima board, but I was living in a little travel trailer, and it wouldn't fit in the bathroom. So
Oh,
it's pretty
cause
simple to build your own Colima board.
wow. Maybe if one day you want to share some instructions on how to do that. I don't know. I'd never
It
looked
just
into it.
I'm just thinking shipping to Australia would be just insane.
Well, I can make it here. I just don't know. I don't know what it
Oh,
is. But yeah, shipping is ridiculous to here. It's not worth it for like anything. Unless you're buying vitamins and minerals, because here vitamins and minerals are way overpriced. Um, like you can't get like a bottle of dandelion or something here is like $45, and it's
wow.
Yeah. Wow.
really expensive.
But
So
the Colema board, it's like a piece of wood, a table wood upside down, right?
It just a board with a hole in it. But all the new ones now are made out of plastic, so they're much more sanitary. But yeah,
mhm.
you would just make it out of a piece of plywood.
Oh, yeah, I
It
gotta look
just
into
saves
it.
you. It just saves you from getting up and off the floor constantly.
Yeah,
That's all, what it does. So
Okay.
but
Yeah, I
it's
think I remember seeing it once.
definitely good for the older generation as well.
Hmm.
Because it's harder for them to get up and down. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
oh well. So I think it's definitely important to include these things in the programs as well. One of the criticisms that we get for the Dr. Eck approach is that we are a little bit more aggressive when it comes to detoxification, and that is that we not only do we do the supplement program, which replaces the nutrients, the less preferred elements, which that in itself and a lot of people can really move the needle and get them on the right track for their health. And I know this just working with a lot of older people that are in like their 50s and stuff that are really resilient to diet changes, but they're willing to take a pill. It seems like the American way. But we're a little bit more aggressive when we do, enemas and when you do sonotherapy. That it definitely is more aggressive than the Dr. Watts approach. As far as I know, most of them don't do any of this stuff. So we do get a lot of people that followed Gerson or do other modalities like Gerson's therapy, or they find their way to us because of the coffee enema approach that we do. So, not to say anyone's better, it's just we're a little bit more into natural hygiene. I think that's the term that they use for it.
Do you get involved with oxidative therapies at all, such as sodium chloride, also known as MMS?
Oh, is that chlorine dioxide?
Yes.
Yeah, sodium chloride salt. So, chlorine dioxide, I was just chatting with my wife today about using chlorine dioxide as a way to ensure like a really clean mouth. Um, but I don't personally use oral chlorine dioxide, mostly because I don't know the effects that it has on the minerals that I'm doing. As far as oxidative therapy, one of the major ones we do use is just copper. Right, copper has that redox potential, so it switches between an antioxidant and an oxidant. And I don't know about chlorine dioxide personally. Do you have experience with that, Raquel?
No, but I tried MS MSF MSF MSM,
Yeah.
right?
That's the salt.
And the detox, yeah, was unbearable. I mean, it threw me off big time. I detox a lot, so no, I mean, I'd rather keep it, like keep my high sulfur rich veggies intake.
Mm.
And I know that assists a lot with the detoxification, from the liver and the body.
MSM's really
Then,
underappreciated. I've recommended it to people, and I'm like, only take like a gram or two in the beginning, and then work your way up. Like after like within reason, like slowly work your way up. And I've had people that think like, oh, I just want to get all these metals out right away, and I
yeah.
think the person was taking like 2 tablespoons or 3 tablespoons of MSM, and they're like, I don't feel well, and I'm like, well, what are you doing? Like, you're only on a little bit of MSM. Like, no, I'm taking 3 tablespoons, and like,
Wow.
that's why you're not feeling well. uh,
Oh my goodness.
yeah, it's circulating a lot of metals. MSM is like selenium's bigger brother, or what? They're brothers at that. I don't know which one's bigger per se, but yeah, and it really enhances glutathione production, which really starts to move metals. So, uh,
Yeah. I think it depends. I mean, in this healing journey, it's like you have to see and get to know the things before you try it, and then try it and see if it's something that your body can effectively handle it at the time, or
yeah,
if not, then slowly build up. Some people do certain things, some people take other things. I mean, it, yes, we do follow program, but at the same time, it's a very individual healing journey. You
yeah,
see? Yeah.
absolutely. It's you know, it like that's what I mean. It's very like aggressive as far as detoxification, but then at the same time, and it's kind of a hard balancing act, is that we also recognize biological individuality, right?
Right.
Like I know at one point I've taken like 12 tablets of Megapan in a day, right? And I
Mhm.
know some people that can't tolerate 2 Megapan tablets a day. Like it just makes them so tired. They feel unwell. They start detoxing immobilized metals way too quickly, and they have to go way slower. Um, but
Let me tell you, I couldn't take Megapan, I think the first 6, 8 months on the program. I couldn't.
yeah,
Every time I took one pill, oh my goodness, it was bad. And then, but slowly, then I started like to cut, half of a pill every other day or like every 3 days. But right now, I'm up to taking 6 a day, like taking two, two, two. or 4 a day.
Yeah.
And been doing good. Yes, yes. Mhm.
I take like
So,
6. That's just what I do. 6 a
mhm.
day. And I generally recommend other people do that as well, but I know most people can't do it. Uh,
Yeah, Megapan is the like the B complex for Mike in case he's not familiar with
yeah,
it.
Megapan is like a multivitamin on steroids, and the fact that like
Exactly. Listen to the name, Mega Pam. Cause yeah,
yeah,
but it's a super supplement.
yeah. I mean, like I've
Mhm.
compared it with other multivitamins, for example, and like multivitamins like take 3 a day or something, and it's like whatever it has, like you can compare it with a lot of other products. And then you look at like Megapan and the doses we use on that, and like there's no comparison. Like you pretty much, if you take 6 a day, you're taking like the orthomolecular amount of nutrients all the way across the board. So like if like chromium, for example, some people say like, oh, take like 200 micrograms, 400 micrograms. It's good for blood sugar regulation or something. Um, you just by taking 3 Megapan a day, I think you're already at like 600 micrograms of chromium. And then when you
Right.
take 6 a day, you're at like 1,200 micrograms, which is basically what you give to diabetics, people with very high calcium magnesium ratios. So, like, it's really definitely a potent product. The fast oxidizer, I feel like gets a little ripped off when they get the stress pack, personally. Because they just don't get those nutrients like the slow oxidizer. But I guess it's different
Right.
because the slow oxidizer is someone that's been prolonged burnout. Like they've had a lot of stress over a long period of time, and their body has like
Right.
collapsed into like the state where they don't create energy very well. They're kind of like on the road to the end of the journey, if I can say it like that. Whereas the fast oxidizer is someone that just has like an acute alarm reaction, and they're
Right.
like the first stage of the stress theory. So there's a
Yeah,
different
no,
thing there.
and that's yeah, when my health broke, back in 2015, my first test, I was a fast oxidator, but it was actually, I was under a lot of stress, so but then after that, it's been like slow, I've been on slow oxidation and mixed oxidation, on and off throughout the test. Yeah, but it wasn't like a true fast oxidator when I first got my first test.
No, yeah, it takes a while to get
Yeah.
real fast oxidation. uh, I got it
Mhm.
last year, I think. And it was great because I mean I finally had the energy to do the lifestyle I had. And I thought, well, maybe some of the reason why I was in
Right.
Slock Station is because I was like so outgoing all the time, doing like consults and all over the internet and doing all this other work and writing really long
Yeah.
articles and all that stuff. But now I wouldn't trade fast oxidation for anything. I want to stay fast oxidizer. I do. Um,
Yeah.
so where are you at, Raquel? Are you for Lowe's or
No, no, no. I'm a mild slow oxidator
okay?
on my last test. Yeah. hmm But yeah, you know, overall good. I think my issue it's been the copper throughout,
Yeah.
the years. Also being pregnant, having, 5 pregnancies. Um,
Wow.
as we know, yes, as we know, how copper increases, with each pregnancy and all of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so far, I mean, good progress. Sometimes when dumping like that, like a lot of aluminum, and nickel, I've been dumping, yeah, the nickel, that hasn't been
Mm.
fun with the detox symptoms.
Nickel's hardcore to
Um,
detox. I'll tell you that.
yes, 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 yes. Ooh. So,
Yeah.
but but knowing what is happening, it doesn't give me anxiety anymore. Like I'm more aware and more, of what's happening. So I'm handling like a champion now compared to before. Before
Yeah.
I used to be like, oh my goodness, I'm freaking out, and all that. But no, yeah, but now it's like, okay,
Yeah.
relax. It's cool. I'm dumping. Keep on dumping, and then I assist my body. Like some days I slow down or just like stop the supplements for a couple of days
Yeah.
to kind of, bounce back, and then I restart them again, or I do the sauna like for a week, and then it's like boom, I feel it coming, and I'm like, okay, so I stop the sauna for a day or two, and then I go back, at it. So,
The longer you're on the
hmm
program, the more you can recognize the healing reactions and
right,
what's
right.
going on. But even still, I get some myself. Like I had a healing reaction the other day. I'll share it just with you guys. It'll be recorded anyway, but I'm quite an open book. And
hmm
it was like it looked almost like it was like herpes simplex all over my stomach, right? But it wasn't because it was spread out further, and it wasn't herpes. I went to the doctor, and they said that's not what it is. But
Yeah.
it came with a big change in my oxidation rate as well. So, like I said, I hit fast oxidation last year, and then I fell back down
hmm
into four lows, and then I was there for a little bit, and then um, I had this huge boost in energy, big change in symptoms, and then I got this rash all over my body. And, and even to me, after I've been on the program for like 5 years, and I'm like, there's, uh, it worried me. I went to the doctor. He's like, I don't know what it
Yeah.
is. And then it just like went away. It was only there for like a week, right? But these
Yeah.
things are hard to manage a little bit. And
Yeah.
yeah, but five,
Some healing reaction can be not scary, but they can make you concerned
oh, yeah.
because yeah.
Absolutely.
I know that feeling, but then it's like, oh, okay, oh, okay, okay. It's like every time they happen and go away, it reassures you, that if you are working on your health, on your healing, taking the right nutrients, the right vitamins, you know, uh, almost like 98, 99% of the time it's a healing reaction compared to somebody that is not doing, um, let's say, it's living like a
Yeah.
regular lifestyle and they have a lot of health issues and then some things are started to happening. It's not like a healing reaction. It's just maybe a condition or something just getting a little bit,
Yeah.
worse than what it's been
You
for the
can get
person.
disease reactions, I guess they're called, while on the program, and they're really hard to tell the difference. We did have a couple
Yeah.
people in the group. You probably have seen McKill, where we're like, look, just stop taking this
hmm
product for a while. Like one example was kelp. Taking too much kelp, they developed a goiter on it while taking that much iodine, and after taking it away, which they were perceiving it as a healing reaction, actually wasn't. It was actually a program making them worse. And
hmm
the Four Lows program, I had a client that was in Four Lows for 6 years, right?
hmm
Developed a whole bunch of problems on it. And, once we just like took a step back away from like the mineral balancing, only treat Four Lows with calcium, magnesium, zinc, and to a different approach,
hmm
they actually got some improvement in their health. But to be going through
Right.
something for that prolonged, like 4 or 5 years or something, before realizing, like, you can generally say it's like probably a disease reaction. But when it's like a short in the moment thing, like an acute reaction, that's a
hmm
result of like nature's healing forces moving in the body and changing things, right? And like that one, we can pretty
Right.
much generally say that's a healing reaction. Um,
Right.
the healing reactions generally resolve in a short period of time. Uh, I have had one though where my arms went numb for 2 months, and I'll tell you,
Wow.
I was detoxing a lot of lead that time, and
Wow.
um, yeah, and that one sucked because like you need your hands, and it's really hard to
Of
go about
course.
life with numb
I
hands,
cannot
right?
imagine.
Yeah, like they were like
Yes.
pins and needles numb the whole time. And I don't, like I said, I work in a chiropractic clinic, right? So I'm well familiar with like spinal issues and how they impact the
Yes, yes.
nerves and how they like your nerves are like, along your spine. So if you
hmm
have spine problems, obviously it can affect your nerves and you can get weird symptoms like that. So uh,
Right.
in that situation,
But it was not related. It was not related to your spine. It was because of the detox that you were going through with the
Well,
metal?
see, for me, I've come to the conclusion that it was a bit of both. And I know this because at my young
Okay.
age, I did have testing done, had an MRI, and I had deterioration of the spine. So I had started to develop stenosis, which is narrowing of the spine, the bones in the spine, the connective tissue. And I also had
Okay.
bulging discs. And like I know I had deterioration of the spine. But from the mineral
Okay.
balancing perspective, we know that, well, our bone is basically a reservoir for minerals, right?
Right.
And it's like that Jing concept. It's like the first, that's where excess nutrients generally, if we have an abundance of them, they'll go in the bone because then we can pull on them later in life to maintain health. Now, that's also the reason why people have degenerative spines and all that as they grow older, is because they started to deplete these nutrients that are found in their bone.
Right.
So for me, when I first had my first hair test, I was a slow oxidizer, had very high calcium levels, and you could say, oh, calcium is biounavailable. So I had to go on a bone program, and the reason why I was detoxing so much lead was because my body had made the compensation of using lead rather than calcium for bones, right? While I was growing up, because I was just calcium deficient. So my understanding is that the lead started to build up my bones once I started to detoxify the lead and make that exchange with the calcium. My bone structure started to change a bit, and then it affected my nerves, which then went on to affect the area of my body. Um, and mine happened to be in the upper, I think it's the thoracic region, even though I have degradation in other areas. Um, and that's where it affected my hands. I think this can also affect people's digestion if it happened to be in their spine, that's like in the lower back area. Um,
Hmm.
but for me, because the amount of lead I was detoxing, I think that my body was starting to rebuild some bone. And while I needed that in my symptoms overall, like, because I had a spine injury, Mike, you didn't know, but I had a spine injury and I like couldn't walk. So I had to rebuild my spine. So I know like there was something more to it, even though like it was a healing reaction, but it wasn't an acute thing, like a short time. It didn't last like 2 weeks or something. I had numb arms for like 2 months. Um, so sometimes they can go longer, and that's why it gets a little confusing.
Right.
I have another question for you two.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever got into different parasite protocols?
We shared this the very first call. Raquel, you want to talk about it?
Yes, sir. Well, yes. Um, when I first started, right, I started with the coffee enemas. I started coffee enemas. Let me see. I started coffee enemas. And when I first started coffee enemas, a lot of things started to be removed from my system. And I'm like, it was very shocking at first. Um, I remember, yes, on 2016, that's when I can say I formally started the nutritional balancing because I got my hair test in 2015, but I
Mhm.
didn't test again for another year. So in
Yeah.
2016, right, I started the program, but I also, in combination, I was doing nutritional balancing. I was doing the iodine protocol, and I was also doing Dr. Hulda Clark parasite cleanses.
Okay.
So I combined those three. Um, it was
That's
very
the herbs,
challenging.
right? Were you doing the essential oils or just the herbs?
The herbs, yeah, the
Okay.
from Dr. Hulda Clark.
Yeah, yeah. Because sometimes some people use
Yes,
the essential oils in a capsule, and other people just do like the.
yes. No, no, yes. I did the whole 9 yards. I
Oh, you
did
did the
the
whole
whole, and
thing.
I even did oils in the coffee enemas.
Oh
Like I
wow,
used to put, yeah. And I'm telling you, I mean, I detox like crazy. And I was also taking the iodine. I went up to 75 milligrams and 100 milligrams of Lugol's iodine.
wow,
And I can tell you, man, that was the first time I begged my husband to take me to emergency room because I thought I was dying.
that's a lot of iodine, though. I mean, like
Yes,
that's like a
yes,
million
yes.
times higher than what is recommended like,
Yes, yes. I mean, yes, but I mean, yeah. And let me tell you, it took me a year because I was studying iodine. I started studying and reading about iodine for a year. I started in 2015, and then that's in 2016. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a go. But the combination of three, and it did detox a lot, and I had a lot of like candida die off coming out.
yeah,
How do you call this other one? Liver flukes, a lot of liver flukes. Like you
yeah,
cannot believe it. Like I'm like, what's going on inside of me? And at the same time, it gave me a lot of depression. Seeing everything that was coming out of me, because it's like, from when, from where? It's all of this. It's like mentally, I wasn't prepared to go through that amount of detox that I went
you
through.
were on the
You
mineral
see?
balancing program as well, right? So you're also taking,
Right.
so you're also at the same time probably mobilizing metals.
Yes. Oh, yes, yes. I have the high mercury coming out, high aluminum, even
Yeah,
arsenic. I think that was the only time I dump arsenic
yeah,
until today. It was very hard, but yes, I mean, a lot of
yeah.
parasite came out. But then, okay, through the time and keeping on doing the nutritional balancing program, I've come to the conclusion to myself that the body will detox the parasites. When you're giving your body the right nutrition and the right supplements
Yeah,
for your oxidation rate, your body will take care of that. Sometimes doing those herbal cleansing, it will remove them, but it doesn't mean that the load will stop developing and growing in your body, because
yeah,
at the end, really, the copper, balancing the copper along with other minerals is the key, because copper helps to keep in check candida overgrowth and the parasites in our body. So that's
absolutely.
why a lot of sick, all of us with all these healthy issues that we're going through, when the cover is off, that's why a lot of people develop candida. That's why a lot of people have parasites, because your body is not keeping them in check. So the general approach through nutrition and supplementing, to me, is the best thing that we can do, instead of just using strong herbs to kill some
It's
parasites
very forceful,
that.
that approach.
Exactly. I think it puts the body into too much stress, really. Um, and so personally, that's my experience and my opinion with the parasite programs.
Have you done one, Mike?
Yes,
Do you
I
want to share?
started with the coffee enemas, saw things, and then finally ended up doing Klinghart's protocol. Are you familiar with Dr. Klinghart?
Yeah, a lot of my clients work at or go to Sophia Health Institute because most of my clients, like maybe about 45% of them, all diagnosed with Lyme, and they all go to Sophia Health Institute. So yeah, very familiar with his approach.
Yeah, so it was about 7 or 8 years ago. It was all allopathic based prescription drugs, and now he has stepped away from that.
Yeah,
And I don't know if he was getting in trouble or if he now feels that the allopathic approach isn't appropriate or not. But so I don't know what why he changed his protocol.
I think he's trying to go towards the herbal approach. I think
Okay.
it's just like he does use drugs regularly, but he some of them are very questionable on how safe they are as well. But from as far as I know, I think his goal was originally to work with people with Lyme on a completely drug-free approach. I think that was one of his major goal. Um, but he was doing like the anti-malarials, which are now being recommended for the coronavirus, right? Um, uh,
I don't think he was recommending anti-malarials at all. It
yeah,
was so it was ivermectin, Pranquil, not Pranquil, albendazole, ivermectin. Um, I forgot all of them, but
that's all right. Right now, he's even still recommending to use the
Alina.
chloroquine. Yeah, which is an
Okay.
anti-malarial. So he's still
Right.
there. And but
Right.
as far as I know, he's like a parasite kind of specialist. He went to like I think he got his doctorate in India, but I guess I probably didn't get it in India, but he did like what's it called when doctors go out to other places to work for a bit, part of their training or whatever they have to do. He went to India and really worked with a lot of parasites. So I think he's definitely got some good input on that stuff. Uh, did you do the drug approach to do it?
Yes. Yes.
Oh wow. Did it suck? I
And
mean, Raquel shares her story as if like she went through a terrible time. Just curious if the drug, how you went. Um,
I was passing about a quarter cup to an eighth of a cup of parasites with each coffee enema, and
wow,
this went on for almost 2 years.
wow,
Yes, that's amazing. Yeah, that to me, that's about the period of time that I was detoxic on a daily basis. And I used to do 4 coffee enemas a day. One at 7 a.m., the other one at noon, the other one at 5 p.m., and the other one before I went to bed. And each time I did the coffee, I had like that. It was unreal. For the first 2 years.
you really learned that you're more than just human, hey?
Right, right. Wow, but that's good, Mike. That's good that, yeah, your body was releasing all of that, the overload of the parasites. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's better out than in. The farthest I've ever gone for just parasite cleanses is just general like herbal support, so black walnut husk and olive leaf and a couple of other substances. They're
So,
basically on one herbal thing.
so when I was doing the Hulda Clark protocol, you keep each few days you increase the dosage, and I was starting to get heart palpitations
Yeah.
from the wormwood, I believe. So I
Oh,
had
yeah.
to actually stop that.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yeah, a lot of people report that I know before.
Part of
Hmm.
the thing is these parasites don't want to leave, right? So they'll make you feel really bad. So it may be the wormwood, but it could be the parasites as well that just are fighting
Fighting.
back.
Right.
This is my
Yeah.
home. Like I'm not going. Uh,
Totally. And not only that, when they're dying off, like dislodging from your system and your body on the way out, I mean, it's horrible. I mean, I have even clients and even myself, I've experienced that you start to feel nausea and a little bit dizzy, and you get this all of a
yeah,
sudden anxiety, and it's like, oh my goodness. But then once you release them through coffee enemas, it's like, okay, I'm back,
yeah.
kind of thing.
The
On the way out, yeah, they can make you feel
they
terrible
also
too.
they store a lot of heavy metals in them. So when we
Right.
find like low heavy metals on the hair test, it could be that like you're not really eliminating them, but the odds are as well that these parasites or even different microbes through biofilms
Mm.
are using these toxic metals that should be coming out through our hair um, for their homes, right? And then when you
Right.
start to eliminate those or mobilize those or break down the biofilm, even if you break down the parasite, like I know Dr. Wilson recommends digestive enzymes, and personally, like I'd rather get those buggers out whole because if you break them down, then you got to deal with everything their bodies are made up of, and they use metals, so you're going to be. I don't know. To me, I'd rather get them out whole than to break them down. So I don't ever recommend
Right.
digestive enzymes for um, parasites. But I have used the pine oil, turpentine, and that is probably my favorite method only because like I kind of enjoy it like the turpentine. I like the taste. So I just like drink it like just for fun, but then I always get the side effect of like you start to get like Raquel was saying like very woozy. It's almost like you feel like someone intoxicated. And it could be just from the oils themselves, like drinking turpentine. But I also think it's these guys that just aren't happy, and then they start excreting compounds that are very toxic as well. So um,
Right.
if anyone does like
Yeah.
that's going to listen to this choose to go down that path, you might want to consider having like some extra charcoal or something to help bind these toxins that build up in the blood, because
Right.
feeling unwell is like cardinal sign of poisoning yourself, right? Like that's
Yeah,
happening.
yeah. And we want to have things also flowing, like our detox path open, so the
Oh
things
yeah.
can flow and the toxins can keep coming out and not recirculating. Yeah. John, let me ask you this question real quick.
Yeah.
One time back in those days when I started doing, all of those procedures, I did try the turpentine. And it says when I took it with sugar. It
Yeah.
says like to mix the thing with sugar, and I took a spoon, right? When I swallow it, like a few seconds later, my airways close,
Yeah. Is this
and I
every
was
time you do
gasping.
it, or you just?
No, 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 no. That was the only time in my life I did that.
Yeah.
It was my first and last time. I mean,
Yeah.
as soon as I swallow it, I think what I'm thinking, because over the years I keep thinking like, why did that happen to me? It totally closed my airways for like 20, 30 seconds. It was like the most scariest thing I've ever been
Mm.
in my life. My husband, I went to the room and I was trying to talk. I couldn't talk. I couldn't breathe. He started hitting me in the back, and then I was like,
You make it
slowly
worse.
getting, yeah, no, 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 but
Yeah.
I started slowly getting some air. it,
Yeah.
it was like choking. But I think I didn't drink water right away with it. you
So
you think that could be
what
the reason why?
I don't know for you, but what I do recommend, if someone chooses to do the turpentine, and of course this
Hmm.
call is gonna have a disclaimer like all the others, for
Yeah,
this
and it's
reason.
different exactly in
But
everybody, and I've read excellence, of course, reviews on it,
yeah,
but personally on me it didn't sit go well.
so when I use
What do you
turpentine,
recommend?
um,
Uh-huh.
I come from a herbalism background, right? And I studied not only
Right.
herbology but pharmacognosy, which is like using specific plant compounds for pharmaceutical applications. And what um, we learn is that a lot of the essential oils, like it's like standard kind of thing, is they should be put in a fat of some kind, right? So I know like Jennifer Daniels always recommends people do the sugar cube or just a spoonful of sugar, which Raquel's probably have tried here. And the reason why, in the herbalist perspective, we don't recommend people do that or use any water whatsoever to use these oils is that they're hydrophilic, or sorry, they're hydrophobic, meaning that they don't like water. So they turn. I don't know if you've ever put like an essential oil in a glass of water and it bubbles up and it goes at all the different areas and it kind of like it expands its surface area from one drop to like a bunch of little tiny drops. Well, when you put that like in your mouth, well, your mouth is full of water, so that's what it does. It disperses, and it really increases the area that the actual oil is touching. So, um, I always think it's dangerous to consume any essential oil in water, and especially if you just use water, because once you swallow it, you just got to go all the way down your alimentary tract, to your stomach, and
Yeah.
then go through your stomach, and there's a lot of water there. So I find that
Right.
like what I do is I put it in milk, right? Because that's
Okay.
so I do milk, and I know milk naturally has sugars in there as well. Um, so I use milk, and sometimes I'll add sugar to the milk as well. Um, it depends how I'm feeling. The sugar doesn't mix that well in milk. If anyone's tried, it kind of does, but not really.
Okay.
But
Right.
the fat of the milk seems to be all right. I haven't tried cream, but I would do that as well. Um, you
Okay.
probably could do it in coconut oil as well. But just I prefer milk because, like I start off with one drop, and as I work my way up to like a tablespoon, then I
Oh my goodness, John, I did a teaspoon.
yeah, so you start with one drop, right? and and
Okay.
you slowly
Okay.
build up as you can tolerate, because like you start to feel a
Right.
little
Wow.
woozy, and you see more people talk about taking turpentine as well, is that like it can cause some like the side effect of taking turpentine is you
Yeah,
can feel kind of drunk. Like it's just,
yeah,
I don't know if it's the bacteria that are dying or what it is, but it seems to be a side effect. But anyway, as you slowly raise it up, titrate your dose up, you can tolerate it a little bit better. Just like an alcoholic can drink more, you know. So,
yeah,
but I like to use the milk delivery method because like you have a glass of milk and you take like a tablespoon over a prolonged period of time. It's not like a one shot of like a whole bunch of essential oil in one go. It's like a stream of it coming in so you can casually drink the milk. So that's what I do. Um, yeah. So, just for everyone that knows, it is part of my program for those people that are a little more advanced to do the pine oil. But we don't
yeah.
recommend it like you did, Raquel, for basically the reason that you shared. It's dangerous
Yes.
stuff.
No, man, I think, yeah, I wasn't thinking right, really, when back then going through everything that I was going through, because when your health and your immune system lowers, it's not only the physical health, also there's a lot of stress. Well, the stress, that you're going through at a certain time can lower your immunity, and then all of this imbalances start to happen. So I was also going through a lot of personal, stress
Yeah.
and emotional issues and all of that. So I think my judgment was impaired on taking very high dosage things. But yeah,
You'll
I've
find
learned. I've learned.
we all do. You'll find that those
Yeah,
people with the very high calcium to potassium ratios are generally like that.
yeah,
And that like you don't like to ever bring it up to the people, right? They have a calcium potassium of 118 or something, and like you don't really want to tell them like you don't see reality for the way it is, but it's a sad reality of that's what it means. They just like it seems like a great idea. You can convince you, I gotta get rid of parasites. I'll just take all these things, right? Top priority. But you just don't think about um, how it's going to properly affect you. And you'll find that with people with that calcium potassium ratio. As it goes over 18, you'll see that. And Dr. Eck used to say that was uh, a trend. So it's not diagnostic, but he said it's a trend for people in a state of psychosis, which I guess is what that means.
yes. Back then, I remember my NAK ratio was like 21.5.
21 for an
Um,
NAK.
yes, it was
Wow.
very, very high, and that's the highest that I had it. I mean, yeah, yeah. I mean, mostly it was low. It was less than 2.50.
Yeah.
But around, yeah, that time it was that high. I
I think
know.
the highest NAK I've ever seen was 86. And
Wow.
like, just so you know, Mike, the NAK ratio, when it's higher than 4, it indicates inflammation. So,
Inflammation, right?
yeah, so when it's at like 56, like the example we use is like the ratios are a lot like shoe sizes, where you can get away with a little bit higher, a little bit low, but the
Yeah,
higher they go, it's like trying to wear clown shoes or pants that are too big for
yeah,
you or something. It's a real stress on the body.
right,
So having like a 56 NAK even is very like that's a lot of inflammation, a lot of liver stress, even potential kidney
right,
stress as well. Um,
right, right. No, when I saw mine at 21, that time I remember I was like, what? What? But again, I was detoxing a lot already. So
yeah, so you're probably a mixed oxidizer then, I imagine, with an NAK like that. Uh,
yes, yes,
you don't remember, it's fine. Um, yeah. The
yes.
one thing I did want to bring up though, because of this virus, people are running to vitamin C, people are running to zinc, And as if like those are the saviors, right? Like even Dr. Oz is recommending you take vitamin C and zinc. And I wanted to bring up just for a short period the mineral interactions. If you just take just those two products like that, especially if you don't know your body chemistry, like from a hair test, you can create some problems. So just taking too much zinc right off the bat, obviously you can imbalance your zinc to copper ratio. Now, uh, the ratio between zinc to copper is generally 8. That doesn't mean you take like 8 to 1 zinc and copper, but it's not far off. You probably can do that if you're going to guess, you know? So you could probably take like 25 milligrams of zinc and, 2 milligrams of copper would be fine. But I'm not recommending that. I'm just saying that for those that are going to do whatever they want. That's what people do. Um, but if you just take just zinc and vitamin C, then vitamin C, what it does is it depletes copper, right? So it takes the copper, uh, it lowers ceruloplasmin, which is the bioavailable copper. And so it can cause what's biounavailable copper imbalances, right? So that's one thing vitamin C does. Vitamin C also raises sodium levels, which is great because most people with infections generally have a sodium potassium ratio of lower than 2.5. Um, so it's good to take vitamin C, is probably a good idea to take during times if you're worried about infections. But in my opinion, because vitamin C lowers copper, you're probably going to want to also take copper, right? To help keep this balance in check. Now, if you're taking vitamin C, which lowers copper, and you're taking extra, high amounts of vitamin C, or sorry, if you're taking vitamin C and taking high amounts of zinc as well, then you're really pushing yourself down that path of an imbalance with copper. So,
Oh,
what I was thinking is that, like, sure, zinc is very antiviral, and so is vitamin C. But if you do take both of these products together without extra copper, you're going to set yourself down the stage of bacterial infections because copper becomes biounavailable, and copper is very antifungal. Um, so, just one thing I was thinking of the people that are panic supplementing extra
yeah.
zinc. You might want to like limcomin is a good product if you're just gonna go down this path. So I've been recommending everyone take limcomin. Just whatever. I don't really care what their sodium potassium ratio is if they're just doing it for acute, uh, during this time. I guess we'll see now. Like I've heard some doctors say this virus thing's gonna go on for another year and a half, and like I wouldn't recommend taking Lincoln for that long, but especially if you don't know. But I guess we'll take it as it comes as far as that goes. But for now,
Right.
Lincoln seems to be right.
Right. Yeah, I mean the ideal thing will be to test and see what is it that your body it needs.
Yeah.
But not everybody can do it or is aware of it.
Some people just can't
Um,
take that much Lincoln, right? I don't know if you've come
yeah.
across that, Raquel, but some people really struggle with Lincoln.
Yeah, I had a time, yes, that I could only take one Lincomin a day
Yeah,
or like one Lincomin every other day. Right now, because of my NAK, my last test was 2.83.
yeah,
I'm taking zinc. Yeah, I'm taking zinc.
yeah,
And another thing too, the Endomed supplements, they do have trace vitamin C too, so it's not like we're not taking any vitamin C.
yeah,
It's just in a well proportionate way so that your body can, absorb and work at a balance rate and not
yeah.
um mhm,
So the reason why I bring it up really is that because we are part of orthomolecular nutrition, right? And orthomolecular
right.
nutrition is taking the right molecule to correct a condition. Sometimes you need to take a large amount of specific nutrients, right? So a lot of people probably have seen that Andrew Saul is recommending taking at least like I think it's at least 6 grams of vitamin C or something, and then in China, they're also using like 20 grams. I think in New York as well, they're also using it now. High amounts of vitamin C. Um,
Yeah, I saw in New York they're doing IV.
Yeah, which is
IV vitamin C.
which I love to hear
I mean, to fight
because
the virus, I think, what do you think? I mean, of them having the virus at the moment and trying to fight the virus, those are the cases that I've read of
yeah,
the
like the
use of the IV
hospitals are
vitamin
using
C.
it. So
Hmm.
as a someone that likes nutrients and uses nutrients as a primary approach to health, I think it's great. I think that like we need more of that. Like we need doctors and hospitals to be using vitamins and minerals more often. What worries me is like we know for the balance of minerals and mineral balance, that's like what we do, and vitamins and minerals and their interactions with each other. So, um, like you can probably just make an educated guess and say 20% of the people that take high dose vitamin C at those hospitals aren't going to get better. They're probably just not. And they're probably, once they do publish their stuff on the results of vitamin C, mark my words, they're going to say that like it doesn't work all the way across the board. And they'll probably show exactly what we're saying in hair testing, which is about 20% of people, it'll probably make them worse. And they'll probably use that as a warning not to take vitamin C in the future for whatever reason, they love to tell you not to take nutrients.
So,
So
John,
yeah.
I'm a, I'm a conspiracy theorist,
Oh,
and I've done intravenous vitamin C before,
yes, sir.
and generally you're using about 20 grams,
Yeah,
and that's about what they were using. So in New York, they're using 1.5 grams.
yeah.
So I think the intention here is the pharmaceutical companies want to prove that vitamin C IV doesn't work.
That's what I'm trying to get on is they're gonna use whatever they can to say it doesn't
Hmm.
work, and especially if they don't use
Right.
the right dose or don't consider the other nutrients that are involved, right? Um, my personal thing is like they probably would have better progress just using a standard Myers cocktail, right? Like, if some of these people that are sick, like magnesium, like is that crazy to think like they might need that? They're on hospital food. I don't know if you've ever been to a hospital, but there's no large amounts of greens there to get your magnesium from, right? Like, but you know what, Mike? You're probably right. They're probably just going to use this against nutrient therapies and just another nail in the coffin, as they say. Uh, I think it's ridiculous. I think that we should use nutrients. I think that's like our cells require nutrients. To say like, oh, nutrients don't help any disease is ridiculous because they're overlooking basic physiology, probably in the interests of pharmaceutical companies, right, that are trying to sell a drug to do something similar or the same thing. Uh, from a naturalistic perspective, it's like nature provides, and what is it provided? These natural products, vitamins, minerals, and even herbs, vitamins, minerals, herbs, amino acids, um, to do these things. So, yeah, I think it's crazy, but yeah, you're probably right. But I reckon even at lower doses, probably still have about 80% people still improve. That's, my prediction. You can mark my words.
Right. And John, what is your thought on colloidal silver?
Oh,
Nobilizing colloidal silver for the lungs, like with people with upper respiratory
yeah.
problems or pneumonia.
I think I think it's fine to use colloidal silver to nebulize. I'm a little concerned about the nano silver people have been using, and even
Right.
like the really high dose colloidal silvers that people recommend. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know how I feel about those. I think nano is like completely different than colloidal, only because they're very small. Like the ability for nano to get into a cell is like nothing. It's like walking through a barn door, right? Whereas like if you're working with colloidal, it's like you're trying to move like an airplane into a hangar, which is like it can fit, but it's still not like over. Like there's a whole bunch of room for it to get in. It's not really easy. Um,
Right.
and I do worry about like those nano ones, nano anything. If it's nano copper, nano zinc,
Hmm.
I'm concerned about that. I know they're using nano silver in meat products as a natural way of uh, preventing bacteria. So
Hmm.
um, as time goes forward, I think people are really probably going to push it towards silver toxicity. Um, And silver toxicity from a mineral balancing standpoint is like, I would so much rather have copper toxicity because silver toxicity is like the hardest thing to get out of the body. Like the only like known antagonist for silver is like copper and selenium. And you can only take so much selenium. So what happens when you have sufficient selenium? Like, you know, it doesn't. It's not hard to get that. Like it takes 9 months to 1 year to raise your selenium levels up to normal ideal just by taking selenium. So what happens when you're too much silver? You know, you can't really
Right.
chelate it out. How are you going to get it out? You got to take a drug then, and you know they'll probably have a little card up their sleeve for this as is. Um, but for now, I think like small amounts. If you got like some sinusitis, you got some sinus problems, it might be okay to take a little bit of colloidal silver nebulizing.
Right.
I think nebulizing
Right.
vitamin C is probably a good idea. Just standard ascorbic acid. I think nebulizing NAC, so N-acetylcysteine, is also really good. Um, so NAC is a mucolytic, so it's really good at breaking down biofilms. So you could probably take that orally and probably get the same results if you take it away from food. You don't need to like inhale it. But there was a cool article not long ago put forward by Thomas Levy and the Orthomolecular Journal on nebulizing. I think it was magnesium chloride, and that's one of the ones I'm thinking is probably a good idea to do personally.
Oh, I've done that one before. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the
So
nebulizer, yes.
yeah, so he published a paper. He's got like a little protocol. I think the it was based off oral health, like just like mouth
Mhm.
hygiene. Um, but obviously nebulizing brings things down into the lungs as well if you inhale it. So
Mhm.
I think that those will probably be a bit more
It can
promising.
help, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like I don't know how I feel about silver. Like I said, I think there's potential for toxicity, and silver toxicity is not something to mess around with.
Right. And a lot of people have a misconception. They think, because I have come across to people like that, thinking that you can take colloidal silver
Yeah,
or silver like in like every day for a month, 2 months, 3 months, you know? And
yeah,
it's like, whoa, no, 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 no. You know, that's something that when you do, you want to take it, maybe, when you're having an acute, let's say, infection or
yeah,
something, going on that you feel, okay, this might help me, take it for 5, 10 days, no more than
yeah.
that.
Like I have a colloidal silver machine, and I'll tell you, it makes you want to like take large amounts of it just because you can make it at home and it doesn't cost a
I
lot.
just bought one. Yeah, we just
Yeah,
bought one.
yeah.
We
So
haven't used it yet
okay,
because we were watching the tutorial with the distilled water and all of that. But
yeah.
yeah, we got one. But
So what I did, like the first time I got it, because like I never did it before. So what I did was I got like a big like liter jar, right? I made a
mhm,
liter of
mhm,
colloidal silver, and like I don't know how much you've looked into it, but colloidal silver is most potent within the first week you make it, and it still works after that. But like that's why homemade colloidal silver is actually like the best you can do, is because it's fresh. Something changes. I think some of the silver oxidizes, and it's silver oxide instead of some other one. But the when you make it at home, don't make a liter like I did, because then you have to like find all these things to put the silver in. Like I went through like jars and all these weird things just
right.
to put the silver in after. And then also like
Mhm,
nobody needs that much silver. Like I made a liter of silver. Like,
right.
how often have you ever used that much silver? Right? I just
It will
wasn't
last
thinking.
you a year.
Oh, it's it's almost lasted 6 months, and I've barely used like a little tiny thing of it because I don't use it for like
Right.
every little problem I have, right?
Mhm.
Some people do it; they think it's fine. I don't think it's safe to mess with silver personally. Uh,
Right.
and I mean, if you're gonna test your silver levels, you can do doctor's data hair test to do that. Whether or not it's good or not to measure your hair silver levels for toxicity, um, nobody knows, right? And that's part of the problem with doctors' data is that they test everything. Like they'll test gold in your hair, right? And like, there's no significant clinical relevance of having high, gold or high silver in your hair. So I think they just kind of waste. I think they're contributing to some of this hair testing problems that we've had these days with relevance. Um, even hair tin levels, it's the same thing from trace elements. Like there's not enough data to really suggest that even having high or low tin is good or bad, right? Um, yeah, but one of the products I have been looking at for the COVID is I have been thinking licorice may be really helpful. And that could be because licorice is naturally high in sodium, magnesium, manganese, and iron, and they're all things that improve adrenal gland function. Or, and like that's why in the group I'd recommended to take a licorice tincture. And another product I haven't like talked to any much people about really. I talked to a few people about it because I get messages every day about this virus. But the hydrogen peroxide seems to be interesting. You want to get food grade hydrogen peroxide because the powers that be, whoever they be, are they put weird chemicals like in hydrogen peroxide that's not food grade, and it's not good to like inhale foreign chemicals, right? So like you don't want to just get any hydrogen peroxide to nebulize. Um,
Mhm.
So I've been recommending people use like Oxybody as a product from longevity, and it's really high in oxygen. And we use this also for people with like COPD or something that can't get enough oxygen in their blood. So obviously, oxygen kills bacteria. It doesn't necessarily kill viruses. So that's kind of something to think about. The other thing is like kelp is like a good time to really um, take some kelp if you're not taking it. Everyone on mineral balancing programs, like if you come from the Wilson perspective, ends up on kelp. So you generally they're okay, but there's a specific component of kelp like iodine obviously is important, but the fucodin, and it's like this molecule that it's a protein, I guess, that's found in kelp is actually really helpful as well as an antiviral and for immune system food. It's like I think it's a polysaccharide actually. I think that's what it is. So I've been
I
recommending
think
those.
I think that comes from brown seaweed, not kelp.
Yeah, but kelp technically is a brown seaweed, right? Uh,
Oh, okay. All right.
Mhm.
yeah, but
Yeah.
it does like if you get a fucodin extract, generally they take it from like 3 or 4 different brown seaweeds. So it probably doesn't come from kelp if you're manufacturing just the extract. I don't know, but fucodin I do think is really beneficial. I think it's good on just a general program, but now for immune system health, I think it's a good one. Uh, yeah, I have seen some things about the AC2 inhibitors, which is like a channel, I guess you can say, on the cell that the virus manipulates. And I began the call with viruses don't have their own genome, so they have to manipulate their surroundings or surrounding genomes
Mhm.
to do things. And it's
Mhm.
some people talk about the ACE2 and saying that like if you take anything um, that increases the expression of that protein, then you could possibly set yourself up to make the coronavirus worse. I think that that's hogwash. Like they're saying, like people with hypertension and taking blood pressure medication are like people likely to die from the virus. I think taking medications for diseases is probably setting yourself up to already go down that path personally. But um, those ACE2 inhibitor kind of perspective, like they're trying to say don't take selenium because selenium is, it increases this expression of this protein. I don't agree. I just respectfully
Yeah.
disagree.
I know,
Because,
me too.
like, I don't know. It's like maybe you have a perspective as like working with someone that's been diagnosed with blood pressure, high blood pressure, and like you can give them selenium and they can still improve their heart health, right? Like,
Right.
I don't know. Like I think it's just kind of like a theory at this point. I don't think it's enough to really avoid taking selenium or other ACE2 promoters. Um, yeah,
Right. And plus selenium is an antiviral.
yeah,
So it's like, don't, yeah, don't take it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, don't take it. Just line up and go to the hospital line.
Exactly. No, no, no.
But one of the things I have been doing, which I don't know if I recommend it to everybody yet, but I'll tell you from my own personal standpoint is because like right now I'm in the chiropractic clinic, so we're shutting down right now because of I mean, to keep running, we're gonna have to wear a different outfit for every person we see. We have to wear masks, we have to wear uh, gloves, and then we have to completely
Oh, the
sterilize
cost is
the
gonna
room.
increase a lot.
Sorry.
The cost is gonna increase a lot in supplies and everything that you will have to
Yeah, and
use.
just nobody's got time for it, right? So
Right,
like we can't realistically sanitize a whole room after every person. Like it's just not gonna happen. So
right.
we're just gonna have to close. But um, because I interact with a lot of people, and same with Erin, my wife. She's works at a medical
Mhm,
reception, so she's like in the
mhm.
medical practice, like with people that are sick, like going to get tested. So obviously it's high possibility for infection, right? Or at least it's increased. So I've been using quinine, just like old school tonic water, um, like Schweppes brand, which I know has sugar in it, and I know it's like probably not the best thing ever, but I'm using it because it's like an easy way of getting quinine. Particularly like where I live in Australia, you can't just buy drugs online. You can, get them mailed to you from India or something. You can't do that here. So I just been using tonic water, which has about 50 milligrams of quinine in it. And just for a perspective, is when you do take quinine therapy, like if you have malaria or something, they'll give you 400 milligrams. So there's 50 milligrams in a liter of quinine, of tonic water, sorry. So I don't drink that a whole thing, but I definitely have some tonic water around just in case because I don't want to go to the doctor. I'll tell you
Tonic
that.
water. I thought then I got confused when I
Yeah,
read. I think about that. I thought they said it's like Perrier water,
Perrier
like
water.
mineral water. Uh-huh.
Oh, no, this is like tonic water. Um,
Okay.
they
Yeah, yeah.
use
Yeah.
cinchona bark, so like you probably could just buy cinchona bark and use that.
Mhm.
I'm sure it's selling out everywhere from the panic. I just been using like
Okay.
tonic water, like I said. It's
Mhm.
not the same as mineral water. Mineral water does not contain quinine. Uh, so I
Okay.
still take mineral waters as well, but I use
Okay.
tonic
No, no,
water.
I was confused. Yeah, yeah, when I first heard about it.
Yeah, so like the British sailors, they used tonic water with the drink gin and tonic. It's like a
Oh, my parents, yeah, they drink that. They're
yeah,
the one that I always remember
yeah, gin and tonic.
drinking the tonic water with the gin. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so like that's what they sell it as in the shop, and you buy it. It's like mixer for drinks, and they have like
Mhm.
different ones, and you can get like really like there's a high quality one found in America if you're a real purist. By Fever Few, I think the company is. And they sell it in glass
Mhm.
bottles, and it's like really expensive. It's like $1.50 or something for like a little tiny one drink. But I've just
Right.
been getting like a liter of this Schweppes one. It's like it's in plastic. It's made with sugar, whatever. Um,
Okay.
that's what I've been using. Um, just because of the anti-malarial drugs seem to help, so that's how I got to that. Maybe we'll use that.
Right. Okay. And your thought, real quick about the infrared sauna
Yeah.
for, yeah, like we know about this virus that high temperature help to kill the virus. Um, so like by using regularly the sauna, that could help a lot,
Well,
right?
I
Um,
mean, I think increasing body temperature is important. Like they said, I think Hippocrates said at one point, if you can give me a fever, I can cure every disease, is what he said, like to quote him, right?
mhm, mhm.
So you'd think that by using heat therapy or artificial fever stimulation, which is like a sauna, then you can probably use it to help protect you from these things. Um,
Hmm.
as far from what I've read, is that the virus itself is 50 degrees it needs to reach, right? And if a human body temperature reaches that high, then like you'll probably die. Um, you guys are in America. Let me convert that so just so you get an idea. 50 degrees Celsius to F.
And let me add this real quick. I've
Yeah,
seen a lot of Spanish doctors from South America
yeah,
saying and talking about how heating water like in a pot in the stove and just inhaling and breathing the hot steam
mm,
in through your throat, that can also help eradicate um, the virus when somebody gets it. Or I've also seen people, well, a few doctors, right, Spanish doctors talking about even aiming a hair dryer to your throat or your um yeah, like
yeah,
the heating of the air, blowing that can help. They've been advising that, like as an
yeah.
kind of alternative thing when it
Well,
comes to this virus.
Well, not to say like I said, artificial fever is what those things are doing. They're raising the body temperature. As far as I've seen though, is that the virus dies at 50 degrees Celsius, which is 122 degrees Fahrenheit. So um, that's really hot. Like the human body doesn't get
Mm-hmm.
that hot. If it does, like you're probably in the hospital already because of a you know
Yeah,
you're
because
hot
it's
blooded,
too high.
got a fever
Mm-hmm.
of 103, right? So
Right.
like if you're like 122, like you're not feeling well. So if you're gonna raise your body temperature up, that's too high as far as I'm concerned. I don't think the sauna will bring it up that high to like kill it if it was in your body, but having a temperature um, like I guess if you have like a mask and you go outside and you have this mask on and it's exposed to the external environment, you can probably put the mask in the sauna and heat the sauna up to like 50 degrees and it will kill, right? But I don't think you can do it in the body personally. Like I guess you could do a hair dryer as well. I just don't know if it reaches 50. I know the sauna does. Like I have a clear light sauna, so I can change like exact temperature. Um,
Yeah.
so But yeah,
So I have another question to throw
yeah,
at you. Do you have any comments on the cytokine storm that can happen after you get the coronavirus? So some people are
yeah,
recommending melatonin to calm down that storm.
yeah.
Do you have any other
Um,
recommendations?
really, the cytokine storm is like what happens with it's like an overactive immune response. Um, like I know people are recommending melatonin. I personally don't use melatonin. Melatonin to me is like a hormone. I don't want to mess up my circadian rhythm or anything. If I had like a coronavirus, I might consider it. But I'll tell you, firstly, I'd want to have make sure my copper status is all right because melatonin is what's called a biogenic amine, and they're most of them are copper dependent. So my first approach would be to try and make sure I have adequate copper. That's why I've recommended everyone to already take copper, like limcummin and like specifically. But if you're not going to take limcummin, then take copper, but consider the ratio of copper that you're taking in relation to zinc. Um, the cytokine response, if you have an overactive immune system, it's generally a good idea to stop it any way you can because like the cytokine storm is basically like a storm that to me, like a storm doesn't really encompass it. It's more like a tornado, or it's gonna wreck things, right, in your body. So, I'm sure a lot of people are actually dying due to the cytokine storms from the viruses or other things. Like it's not only the virus, right? Um, I think using anything that is an immune modulator. So, immune modulators are adaptogens that can either increase or decrease your immune response, and they're very like they're not one directional; they're bidirectional, so they go both ways. Um, one of them is like people have been talking about like don't take is elderberry, right? Like don't take elderberry; it causes cytokine storm. Well, it also reduces it because it's a modulator. So you want to look at things like that. Other immune modulators are reishi mushroom. Uh, if you live in an area where you can go into the woods, I'm sure you can find a Ganoderma species if you're interested in mushroom uh, hunting. I know when I was in Canada, there were so many of them. I never had to buy that supplement. Now I'm in Australia, they have to buy it because it's not everywhere. Um, but using different like cordyceps, I think, as well as a biogenic, or sorry, as a immune modulator, and turkey tail or maitake. Those are all like immune modulators. Those are probably a good idea to have on hand, but you know, uh, I don't know about melatonin personally. If there's other things to use, I probably would use those things first. That's just my perspective on it.
Yeah, and another thing too, when you take sunlight, um, we know that sunlight helps your body produce natural melatonin at night. So
Yeah.
that's also very helpful and, a good thing to do on a daily basis. Take like 20, 30 minutes, of sunlight and just let your body produce its own vitamin D and melatonin
Yeah,
and all of that to help strong, strengthen your immune system.
absolutely. That um, obviously, like the darker your skin color, the more sunlight you might actually need to reach adequate vitamin D. And vitamin D itself
Hmm.
is also antiviral. I know,
Hmm.
just for everyone's reference, 20 minutes is great if you're like very white or very pale like me. I can go in the sun for 20 minutes and like that's enough vitamin D for me. But the darker your skin gets or the closer to the equator your family originates from, then
Hmm.
the more time you'll have to spend outside. But generally, like it's between an hour and a half, I think, is at most. Like for like the darkest skin people and the lighter skin
Yes,
people,
I
it's
am.
20 minutes. So you
Hmm.
I think everyone should spend at least an hour outside anyway. But like I live in
Yeah.
Australia, I'll die if I go outside for an hour. Gotta cover up. Like
Well,
it's too strong for me. And we have a hole in the ozone layer here, so like the sun is not what it is in America. Um, but yeah, no, good point with the melatonin. And also like just basic things that we should be doing for our lifestyle anyway, like reducing blue light at nighttime, right? Like my office,
right.
I don't know if you guys can see like the video that I have on, but my office is like sunlight. Like that's we have a sky window, so like it's very bright in here. But after we're almost at lunchtime, it starts to go down at like 7, 6, 7 o'clock. And at that time, you're pretty much going to want to use incandescent light bulbs or orange light bulbs, red, yellow, orange. Yellow is even actually a little bit not the best ever, but if you go red, orange, you're pretty much really helping your circadian
Mm,
rhythm and helping that melatonin production that your body does inside its body. So you
right.
don't need to take it externally. Um, that's a good point,
Right.
Raquel.
And going to bed early too.
Yeah.
I think that's my struggle that, be in bed by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night,
Mm.
which will be the ideal for your body. It is so important too. Um, but
Yeah.
I have issues with that. I'm working every day on it.
Yeah.
But I just want to bring it up too that it is sleep, early sleep. It is so important too.
Yeah. You can also take like me personally, I take a lot of calcium at nighttime to kind of really calm the nervous system to help me, get relaxed. You can take paramin. I don't really take paramin all the time. I just take like different forms of calcium. Not that I have a problem with paramin. It's just like I said, I live in Australia. It's a little harder to get here. So my favorite calcium is MCHC, and you can look that up. And that's Endomet sells it as well, Raquel, if you're interested in that. And it's just really high in
Okay.
calcium, and it's really good at sedating you, making you more
Hmm.
relaxed.
Man, I'm telling you, with the 4 children, by the time they go to bed at night, I'm like
Yeah.
electric,
Like
I'm
wire.
vibrating. And then once they go to
Yeah.
bed, it take me like 2 hours or three to kind of
Oh
settle. And
no.
then by midnight, that's when I'm falling asleep. Um, yeah,
Mm.
'cause the children, they're,
Yes.
yeah,
So the calcium with
but
the
I'm
extra,
working. I'm working
the
on it.
calcium with
Uh-huh.
the extra stress though, especially with everyone's worried about the environment and all that, definitely good to help calm the nervous system, help you relax, so you're less responsive to it. Uh,
Right.
so I really like that. The other, just to bring it up, probably have been in this call for a bit, but um, a lot of people like the supposed virus. It lowers potassium levels, so I mean, potassium is really good to take.
Hmm.
You can generally get enough from vegetables and fruit, and like that's generally good enough to get adequate potassium. But
Yeah.
like I know Mike's in here from the Gerson therapy, and they take a lot of potassium. They do potassium broths and all this stuff. The mineral balancing perspective is that like potassium is great, but you need zinc to retain potassium. So you want to make sure that you're getting that zinc as well to hold that potassium inside the cell where it should be. So it's not
Right.
just coming out stressed out, because that's really what's happening. A lot of people are getting run down from the stress of like going to the markets or going to the grocery store, and you know like I
Hmm.
know I get stressed out just trying to remember to stay a meter and a half away from people, like to me it's weird,
Right.
right? Like that stresses me out.
Yeah.
So these
You
micros.
brought up zinc. I want to bring up zinc again.
Yeah.
Again, coming from the Walsh background,
Yes.
that as I increase my zinc, I feel so much better, and it's an immediate effect.
Yeah.
But I'm
Hmm.
also fast oxidizer,
Yeah.
and my zinc to copper ratio is 16.
Yeah.
So I have too much zinc in relation to copper.
Okay. So you're technically a slow oxidizer under stress because you're
Hmm.
fast oxidation, but you have a sodium potassium inversion. You are a slow oxidizer, which would be an
Right.
undermethylator according to Walsh. So you'd get more methyl groups or more sulfur based stuff, and generally, like you should be on some zinc, but you should take it with copper. So if you just
Right.
take the trace elements standard, what the lab recommends, you'll get copper. Off the top of my head, I don't know if it's as much as we'd give at Endomet. I don't think so. I know they're a little bit more hesitant to use copper um, than we are on that side of the fence. Um,
Hmm.
so just to kind of just so you know, like zinc is really good, but what it does is it lowers calcium. So if you already have low calcium levels, you get yourself in this dichotomy of where you take more zinc, you can further uh, mess with your calcium levels, and you'll probably
So
become.
I'm already there.
Yeah,
I have extremely low calcium levels.
that's it. So like you'll take just taking zinc is probably not a good idea. That's why I mentioned in the beginning we'd put you on limcomin. So copper raises calcium, uh, and the manganese that's also in limcomin technically lowers calcium. So another idea would be you could use a product. I don't know if you're going to use Endomet, but I use zinc picolinate from that company, which has zinc and copper in it. So I would take a zinc copper balanced kind of thing rather than just taking just zinc. And that's how we would
Right.
approach that from a mineral balancing perspective.
Now, you made a comment about undermethylation.
Yeah.
So I had my histamine levels checked, and according to Walsh, I'm an overmethylator.
Yeah.
But
So
you mentioned something about a certain ratio. What ratio was that to make a person an undermethylator?
uh, um, so to tell your oxidation rate on like the way we do it at ARL is by looking at your calcium to potassium ratio, and if it's under 4, then you're probably a slow oxidizer. And or sorry, if it's under 4, then the lab, like the computer that analyzes it, will say that you're a fast oxidizer. Um, So there's kind of like a mixed thing here where like you're testing urine, which is more in the moment picture of where you're at. And you could be in an over methylation state due to an stress that's put you there. But that's also what would put you into this raised sodium and potassium levels on the hair test. But Dr. Eck used to say that if you have a sodium potassium inversion, you're a slow oxidizer. Like it doesn't matter what your sodium potassium levels are. If you have an inversion, you still have a low thyroid function. You still have, yeah, you're still a slow oxidizer because you have a low thyroid function.
Right.
So, you know, we're a little different than, what he would use. Uh, you
Mhm.
probably can still use the B6. Like I know you mentioned the sodium potassium inversion and a high calcium magnesium, which means you have a bowl pattern. Even if fast bowl is what it would look like visually, if you know, Raquel probably knows what I'm talking about. But you can use B6, and that will raise sodium levels and help correct the calcium magnesium ratio. Because B6 can not only just raise sodium, but it can also affect magnesium levels. It doesn't necessarily raise or lower it. So, that's one thing there. But we don't like mineral balancing doesn't completely mix with Walsh's stuff, especially the new stuff. It really worked quite well with the older Pfeiffer work because that's the
I have
one.
noticed that
Yeah.
Walsh's work isn't quite up to date of what other programs have.
Well, I mean, he works. He's very scientific, right? And he is like what he's done is still great as far as nutrient therapy and modern clinical approach, right? You can go to some medical doctors or some functional medical doctors, and they'll use nutrient therapy for specific conditions, knowing that it may have the histamine relationship or um, just because of Dr. Walsh's work. So it's fantastic. He also did the hair testing with the prisoners, which is great. But his specialty is not hair testing. So even his own test, like when he did a study with the inmates, he well, obviously he didn't want to use scissors around inmates, so it scared him. So he used an electric buzzer, right, to buzz hair off, and then he had artificially raised nickel levels for that reason because of the metal from the clippers, the buzzer, whatever it's called. And he also never really talked about the actual levels of the mineral levels, like the actual percentage, like whether it was in milligrams percent or micrograms per gram. He didn't mention any of that in his papers. So like, if you're really into hair testing, you want to know those because you can get a lot more information from that than doing averaging like he did. So he's got some limitations when it comes to hair testing and its overall approach. But one thing I'll say is that like if you have histamine levels, whether like generally like histamine is an immune response, right? So if you have high histamine levels even in the urine, then you can say that you're generally like in an immune overactive kind of state. So like if I were working with you, I'd probably put you on a product called Timodrin, which is from Endomet, but it's got thymus gland in it, thymus gland, however you say it, and it's really good for these overactive immune systems, and it's also good for
Okay,
the
so
sorry,
actually my whole blood histamine is on the low side.
yeah. So it'd be the opposite then. Than having overactive, it'd be underactive. Um, you know, we don't really work with bloods much, only because they change so much. They change from
Right.
like week
Right.
to week. So, um, what I can say is that if you have a sodium potassium inversion, you probably have an infection of one kind or another. It could be bacterial, it could be whatever, it could be a tooth infection. That's just how we perceive it on a hair test. It's a infection. We don't know what it is. If you have an infection, a chronic infection, then generally the immune system is not working up to par, right? Like that's just reasonable. It's like the immune system should be addressing any infection. If it's not, then there's a problem there. So that's why I said I'd put you on Timodrin. Timodrin, Raquel probably may not be so familiar with it because Dr. Wilson doesn't recommend it. but Thymogen raises sodium levels, and it also helps. It basically helps correct the sodium potassium inversion. So when you have a fast oxidizer or a slow oxidizer, if they have that inversion, you want to correct the inversion. That's like priority. And Thymogen is really good for that. So it's like thymus gland with a little bit of adrenal gland in there. And I think it has a bit of copper as well. Basically, it's things to help raise sodium levels and lower potassium levels to correct your inversion. Uh, but that's priority as far as I'm concerned. Like I said, I'm not working with you, but correcting that inversion and then supplementing for a slow oxidizer is what I do. But if you follow like just the lab that from Trace Elements, you're probably better off just following what they say, because if you try and make it up with their other products, you probably have a hard time keeping track of all the interactions.
So the had a written protocol that came with it,
Yeah.
but it's not from the lab. It's from the company I ordered the test from. Even better now, just some obscure company, and a lot of
On
the written recommendations didn't make a whole lot of sense, and they contradicted in themselves. It suggested I be on a very high purine diet,
Yeah.
and I have no idea why they would recommend that.
The high purine diet is generally for the fast oxidizer, right? Uh, like I said, I the way we'd perceive it would be to give you a slow oxidizer diet. We wouldn't give you that. That's just one of the reasons that the lab computer makes a suggestion, but it
Yeah, and I think that that's just a standard protocol that they have, that they give
yeah,
everybody.
it's
It's
a
not a
computer like
personalized, exactly generated. Yeah, it's not a personalized program.
yeah,
This is a computer generated program. It
yeah.
is, yes.
So if you go on my website, you can just type in slow oxidizer diet or slow metabolizer dietary guidelines or something like that. I know it's my
And John,
website.
what is your website?
Mineralbalancing.org.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can find all the other archived calls as well on there. But um, if you go on there, you should be able just to find, even if you Google it. I probably should know the name of my own article, but I don't. It's either slow metabolizer, slow oxidizer, dietary guidelines, and that's what I'd be doing. I'd be doing the slow oxidizer approach, and you'll find that on the program that you got recommended, it's high protein, high fat. Well, with the slow oxidizer, it's the opposite. It still has some high protein, but you'd have more carbs and less fat. And by doing that, you'll probably have better results just by following that program. The other thing is, because you got this low sodium potassium level, you may or may not, you at least biochemically, you'll have a hard time maintaining a blood sugar that's balanced. So we generally recommend more carbohydrates for that individual, um, and that's why your calcium magnesium so high. So yeah, we probably put you on carbohydrates as well. So when you click on the diet for that, you'll also get, there's a mention there. If you have a sodium potassium ratio lower than 2.5, then to click here, you click there and it'll take you over and just recommends some more carbohydrates basically, and a little mathematical thing so you can figure out your ratios, because you won't fit into that standard you know standard article. They're all general, so
Right.
like there's always you know um, things that are contrary to the rule, and we kind of expect that. But yeah, you'll find some of that stuff there.
All right. So it's getting late here. I'm gonna head off and get some
Yeah,
dinner.
I should probably go too.
I appreciate all the conversation with you guys.
Yeah, it was nice
Oh, it was
connecting with you,
nice
Mike.
talking to you, and yes, getting to know you, Mike. Welcome.
Okay.
Looking forward to seeing you more in the group. I think this is the first time I've ever connected with you, so
Hmm.
yeah, looking forward to seeing you improve your health, and you'll probably make a great testimonial in general. Just if you've been doing other detox things for 20 years and then you find something that helps you move the needle with those toxic metals, I
Right.
think that'll be good. But
All right, I will see you guys in the future then. Thank you both so much.
bye, Mike. Take
Okay,
care.
Mike. Have a good
All right,
night. Take care. Okay.
bye.
All right, Raquel, I'm gonna call it a day too.
Sure.
You keep
Yes.
shining, and thank you for coming.
Sure.
Sorry we didn't
Thank
have
you.
as
Yes,
many
for
people,
making this call.
but
Yeah, it's okay. Sometimes, the interference, and I know Miss Debbie, she said that she couldn't
yeah.
hear anyone and it was kind of
Oh, there's always something.
hard.
I think it happened last time we
Um,
tried to connect. You couldn't. It didn't work for you. So
but you
uh,
know what? If you want, gather two, three people,
yeah,
like before doing the call, maybe like an hour just to try out
yeah.
to see,
We
and
we
then
try
just
and do
say,
what we
okay, let's
can,
see how
but
that goes.
I can only do so much. I'll be honest. I
I know.
I got to get up early just to do these calls for America. So
I
yeah,
know.
I don't know. Maybe if you wanted to help out some time or something, we can figure it out better. It's up to you.
Sure.
Oh, hi.
Okay. Okay. No, I
Yeah.
want to say hi.
Yeah. Okay.
No, because I've been, while being on the phone, I've been walking, like all over the house,
Yeah. Yeah.
bouncing from room to room, because the kids come in here to brush their teeth, da 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 da. I'm like, okay.
Ah, that's fine. That's
That's
beautiful.
why I mute the camera.
Yeah. So
Okay. Well, have a great night and thank you. It was a
thank you
really
for
nice,
coming.
conversation and information too,
Awesome.
sharing.
So you take care and try not to stress out too much. Just chill.
Oh yeah, it's easy. I'm chilling. The
Yeah.
kids are going to bed now, so I'll get my relaxed time and then go to sleep.
Oh, all right. Well,
Yeah, no, but yeah, taking it easy. I mean, with everything that is happening, I think my stress level, they're being like really good and
yeah.
low. I'm not like going crazy about it.
So are the
And
parks?
take it one day at a time, you
Yeah.
know?
Are the parks closed
Hmm.
there? Because I know like here we have a lot of kids that are like going crazy because they're stuck in the house, and
Oh yes,
any other
yes,
time
yes,
most of them would like it, but because they can't.
yes. I know, I know,
Yeah.
but yes, all the parks, yes, they're closed. And like Disney, Universal Studios, all of the theme parks are closed.
Oh wow.
Yes, and well, I live in Polk County, but Orange County, which is like an hour and a half from here, Orlando, the
Hmm.
Orlando area, they have curfew at 5 p.m. From 5 p.m. until
Really?
6 a.m. next day. Yes, everybody has to be home. I mean,
Wow.
not here in my town, um, but still, we're taking precautions and
Yeah, yeah. Well,
mm-hmm. Um,
thank you for coming.
yeah, let's see how this
Try and
goes.
rest and take it one day
Thank
at
you.
a
You
time.
too. Sure, sure. Yes,
Bye.
thank you very much. Have a great night. Bye, John.
Bye. Thank you.